Hello and welcome back to Trashbook Toy Reviews. Today we are taking a look at Tarbosaurus from PNSO. As I had said in my previous Gamma review, my friend Giarasaurus on Instagram had asked me to take a look at this guy, so here we are. Let's get right into a little bit of the history of Tarbosaurus. So Tarbosaurus bataar, the dinosaur that we're looking at right in front of us, is the only named species in the genus Tarbosaurus. For fellow paleo nerds, they know that Tarbosaurus has been shrouded in a little bit of controversy over the years as far as, is it another species in the genus Tyrannosaurus or is it a whole separate genus? I'm not going to touch on that at all. Just a little bit of the basics of Tarbosaurus though. It lived in Asia, what is now China and Mongolia, about 70 million years ago. It's known for having a much longer and more slender snout than Tyrannosaurus, one of its closest relatives. It had more teeth as well. Interestingly enough, Tarbosaurus also had the smallest arms proportional to its body of any of the Tyrannosaurids. Anyways, let's hop right into the figure itself. For those coming back to my channel, I look at figures in three main categories. I look at the sculpt and details of the figure, I look at the color and paint applications, and then finally the articulation or posing. Obviously with these PNSO figures, they have articulated jaws a lot of the time, but I'm looking more at the pose because you're not buying them for the articulation, let's be honest. Anyways, right into the first category here with the sculpt and detail. So starting here at the head sculpt, you can see beautifully detailed teeth on here. All of the teeth are individually sculpted. You can just take a look at the mouth. You know, even the roof of the mouth is beautifully detailed in there. I don't know how well my camera's picking this up, but I hope you can make it out. He's got his little tongue in there, as well as the little cheek flaps. Everything looks really good on here. You have the detailed scales all sculpted out on the nose. Moving down here, you of course have that crest. And Tarbosaurus didn't have nearly as prominent a brow ridge as Tyrannosaurus did, but you can still make it out, of course. As you can see, he does have a very slender snout, especially with the mouth closed. You can see it comes almost to a point. It's definitely distinctly bulky like a lot of the Tyrannosaurids, but it's unusually long and slender compared to something like T-Rex. Moving down here on the neck, you can see all these beautiful wrinkles and skin folds. And you can see the way that they're sculpted out, it captures tons and tons of details in these scales while still letting them blend together in a realistic way at this size. You have some larger scales sculpted out. It's just beautifully done. You have tons of wrinkling going down this nice thick body. There are some mixed opinions on the larger belly here, but I really like it. For me, it makes him look a lot more intimidating. You can see here the wrinkles just defining the muscles going down the legs. It's all so nicely detailed. And again, they don't skimp out at all on the scale detail going down, even as they're sculpting out more with the muscles. And then just going down here on the tail, again, you can see the skin just realistically folds over the muscular tail here. It's just absolutely incredible. Even the claws here, beautifully, beautifully done, even at this really tiny size. You can see the individual nails. I don't think I have to say too much with this guy. Looking at the skull, you know, this thing pretty much nails what Tarbosaurus looked like if you look at skeletals. He's very chunky, but that's not necessarily anything to do with the skeletals. Again, this guy's just been eaten well, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to give him a 5 in this category. He is wonderfully done. I couldn't ask for better. This is such a cool dinosaur figure. So coming here now at the paint and color, this guy is beautifully done. Just looking at his teeth, you can see there's a little bit of bleeding going on, but it's nothing too crazy. I would say the gums bleeding down into the teeth is probably the worst offender for it. The inside of the mouth is done beautifully, and again, they've used that glossy paint that gives it almost a wet look. I really like when figure designers do this. It just adds that extra level of realism that you just don't see otherwise. Looking at the claws, you can see that they're beautifully done, but again, just not quite perfect. You know, the little claws are much better done, but on the toes, where it's the bigger spots, you would expect them to have an easier time with it, but for some reason, a lot of it just isn't completely painted. It either doesn't make it up all the way, or it has this weird bleeding going on. You know, it's not bad. It's nice that they painted the claws. It's just, you could see a lot better with a lot of their other figures. You can see his crest is beautifully painted, and then he's got this nice gray coloration going on his back, and it's nice counter shading going on with the belly. My only big criticism with this is just the way, I can't tell if it's the dry brushing that they use on it or if it's a wash of some kind, but it gives it almost this scuffed, sandy look where it looks like it's been beaten around in the package when it's just, that's how the figure looks normally. It's just this very light color overlaying this gray color that brings out a lot of the detail, but not necessarily in the way that I want it to. It looks a lot more damaged than it does pristine, and I know that's the effect they were going for, but I'm just not a big fan of it. I'm gonna give this Tarbosaurus a 3. I think what's done well is done very well, but I still just am not a big fan of this final detailing layer that they add to it. Again, I can't tell if it's dry brushing or a wash on there, but it just makes it look beat up a little bit in a way that I just can't stand. From a distance, I will admit that it looks a lot better, but just up close you can see so much of what looks like deformations in the sculpt. And again, I hate it because that's just not the case, but I'm gonna give this guy a 3. Finally, we're getting here to the pose for this guy. So I really like this actually. It's just Tarbosaurus walking along, but you can see his leg is being lifted up in the back. He's clearly in motion. He's just a chunky boy surveying his territory. It's really, really well done. I like how just casual it looks, so natural, and yet he looks very comfortable, like this is his world. As far as the posing is concerned, I'm gonna give this guy a 4. Again, it's not anything super dramatic, but just the way that they set him up, you can see all the muscular detail in there. You can really emphasize the folding on the skin. Like, I think that the pose just complements this figure so well, especially with the size of it. You're not seeing this guy actively in hunting mode. You're just seeing him look big and intimidating walking around. I really like it. It's nice and simple. You can pose him with his mouth open or closed. Either one looks good. It complements the figure really well. So again, I'm gonna give him a 4 in this category. This guy also comes with his little stand, which is really nice. These PNSO figures, some of them stand very well on their own. In fact, Tarbosaurus is one of the better figures I find where it doesn't seem to need the stand most of the time, and the way that the body is set up, it doesn't really lend itself to warping too much over time. It's got this really big feet, and the way that they're set up with the toes in the back, like, it's very well designed, but just in case, they do include this little stand to keep them supported. Some of the PNSO figures really need this. I believe I had mentioned when I got the Therizinosaurus, you know, within a week of me having him, his foot had already warped enough where he couldn't stand up on his own. So this is really cool. In some figures, this is definitely going to be an extra little bonus, but for Tarbosaurus, I'm not giving him extra points for this, but I am just going to note that it is a really cool piece that it comes with, and you know, maybe when I revisit this guy in the future, maybe he will need it, and maybe I will end up giving it a little extra for just being that extra compliment to keeping that figure in pristine condition. But just so you know, he does come with this. In all honesty, I don't really think that it's as necessary for Tarbosaurus as a lot of the other PNSO figures. So of course, to start off size comparisons, we're going to take a look here at PNSO's Tyrannosaurus. You can see Tyrannosaurus is much larger than Tarbosaurus, but Tarbosaurus is still no pushover, just not quite the same size as T-Rex. To look at some fellow Tyrannosaurids, here is Daspletosaurus from Safari. And another T-Rex from Safari Ltd, this is the Feathered Rex. Just to look at some fellow Chinese dinosaurs, here is Sinoceratops from Beasts of the Mesozoic. Obviously very different scaling, but just to give you a sense of size. And finally, PNSO's Jongosaurus. So Mr. Tarbosaurus here is taking home a 5, a 3, and a 4 in his core categories, leaving him with a final score of 4. I think that's very fair for this guy. He's very well done, and I like a lot about him. It's just the parts that I don't like, I really don't like. I think the sculpt is great, the color is good, but I really don't like that final paint application. And the posing is awesome. Again, it's just very simple. I like it a lot, but I think that it would vary a little bit depending on the collector looking for this guy. Some people are going to want their carnivores in more active stances. I really like some casual ones, to be honest. So I think a 4 is perfect for this guy. I definitely recommend him if you want more Tyrannosaurs, if you like dinosaurs in general, but if you're looking for the best PNSO has to offer, I can't necessarily say that I would recommend him. As far as the paintwork goes, they do have a lot on the market that do a lot better than this guy. So thank you so much for joining me for today's review of this Tarbosaurus from PNSO. He is a great figure, and I can't wait to look at more of these PNSO dinosaurs. They're like the coolest things in the world. I never thought we'd see figures like these, as detailed as they are, like just straight up museum grade. So cool. But anyways, next time we're going to be looking at the Varan figure, the Godzilla Store exclusive that just came out a few months back. He is so cool, and I never thought in a million years we'd be getting an official Bandai Varan figure. If you want to check me out across the web, I have an Instagram, Trashbug Toys. I just post toy content from my collection, random stuff, and then a tie-in post for all of these reviews. You can also follow my card in my bio. If you want to check me out across the web in other areas like Twitter. Me and Henry do a podcast if you like monster movies. Definitely recommend checking it out. February is going to be a really fun month for us. We just released Species a few days ago, and that was a really, really interesting movie to take a look back on. Anyways, thank you so much again for joining me. Have a great day.